Dreamcast Mini, we need one, and we'll probably get one, especially with the popularity of the recent Sega Genesis Mini. However, a Sega Dreamcast Classic or Mini is a much more complex idea than any of the other mini classic consoles to date. Online capability, a large controller, and the VMU are just three of the unique aspects that would make the Sega Dreamcast Mini stand out compared to all other mini classic consoles to date. Hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, kick off your shoes and relax your socks while we discuss what Sega could do and what Sega should do to make the Dreamcast the success it always should have been. The Sega Genesis Mini released just last week to critical acclaim, and a lot of people are going so far as to saying it's the best mini classic console to date, making a triumphant comeback for Sega after multiple botched classic console attempts at the hands of acclaim. It's fantastic to see Sega take a step back into hardware manufacturing after 15 years out of the game since the demise of the Dreamcast. But this has got me thinking, what next for Sega? With the success of the Sega Genesis Mini and the popularity of Sega amongst retro game collectors, it would be crazy for Sega to not follow on hot off the trail of the Sega Mega Drive Mini and follow up with another classic console. Now, as most of you probably already know, Sega followed up the Sega Genesis family with two more standalone consoles, the Sega Saturn and the Sega Dreamcast. Both of these Sega consoles seem like ideal contenders for the mini classic console treatment. However, unlike the Sega Mega Drive or the Sega Genesis, both of these other consoles, the Saturn and the Dreamcast, are considered failures in the Sega family. But that doesn't actually mean that they aren't fantastic consoles, especially when we're talking about the Dreamcast, which had a small but solid lineup of quality video games, including titles like Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, Shenmue 1 and 2, Sonic Adventures, and they're just the ones that come straight off the top of my head. The question is, if Sega did decide to expand their mini classic catalogue to cover all of their hardware, which console should they go for next? The chronological option would be the Sega Saturn, but to be honest, I don't really think that would be a good choice. I just don't think it will end up being as popular amongst the fans. Now, to be totally honest, I've got very limited experience when it comes to the Sega Saturn, but from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, I just don't think it's got a very solid lineup of good quality video games. Sure, there are some classics, and I know die-hard fans right now will be screaming at me, but I just don't think it totals enough of a library to warrant a good solid 30 or 40 games that we'd expect on a mini classic console. Now, we also have the Master System to consider. Now, I know the Master System wasn't successful in the US region, however in the PAL region and other areas around the world, it went toe-to-toe against the NES. So with that in mind, it is a great console, and it's a console that a lot of retro collectors actually appreciate to this day. However, Sega already have made the choice to jump straight to the Sega Genesis Mini, showing that Sega are interested in going in for the heavy hitters. The classic mini consoles that are going to get fans all fired up. The classic mini consoles that are going to sell well for Sega to ensure that they finally reign triumphant in the console war, even if it is the mini classic console war. Now, what console is one of the most loved consoles among the retro community? A console that many people wish would have a second chance to revive itself. A console that's just celebrated its 20th anniversary.
はかけますよ。僕モテるから。
We got her!
Hi, Randy.
Well, hello.
It's thinking.
The Dreamcast. So what mini classic console would have us all fired up if we heard about its announcement? The Sega Dreamcast Mini. The Sega Dreamcast was a pioneer of its time, setting the standard for what we see in a lot of modern consoles to date and that we now take for granted. So it would make sense for the Sega Dreamcast Mini to be a pioneer in the mini classic console market. One of the ways the Dreamcast innovated was by coming with a built-in modem, making it the first console to be fully online capable straight out of the box. To date, none of the mini classic consoles from Nintendo, Sony or Sega have any online functionality. They have all been standalone devices. One of the concerns of adding online functionality to the Sega Dreamcast Mini is that the extra hardware required for online capabilities would undoubtedly push up the price. However, the benefits we could receive by having the Dreamcast Mini online would justify this extra cost, in my opinion. Not only would we be able to enjoy a world of retro gaming online experiences like Phantasy Star Online and POD Racing, just to name a couple, we would also have the benefit of Sega being able to publish firmware updates and also being able to expand the library of the Dreamcast Mini online. This would elevate the Dreamcast Mini from being a nice novelty item that would look great on a retro collector's shelf to a genuine console experience that could be evolved over its life cycle, possibly giving the Dreamcast the second chance it's always deserved. When we think about the Dreamcast getting a second chance in the form of a mini console, we have to think, is there a market for the Dreamcast to be born again? To date, mini classic consoles have just been an opportunity for some retro gaming fun. Some people might even see them as just a bit of a novelty, rather than a full console experience. Especially when a lot of the retro games available on these systems are available in collections that are accessible by more modern consoles, or even if you wanted, you could go down the route of downloading the ROMs directly. Now, although there are some Dreamcast collections available on modern hardware, there are a number of exclusive titles that are only available to play on the original hardware. Not only that, but there are even still Dreamcast games being made to this day. There has been a strong homebrew community that started during the life of the Dreamcast and continues on strong to this day. Some genuinely great gaming experiences that can only be found on the Dreamcast. This shows there is a huge community desire to continue the life of this console despite no first-party support. Not only that, but the online community of the Dreamcast is still thriving. To date, a number of Dreamcast titles are still available to play online thanks to the support from servers across the globe managed by fans and players. Sega could pull a masterstroke in the gaming world by leveraging the support of the community and the fans that have kept the Dreamcast alive to this day. A collaboration like this could breathe new life into the Sega Dreamcast Mini. And once again, Sega and the Dreamcast could become pioneers in the console war. But this time, the mini console war. We could have a thriving online community, an amazing selection of retro games, brand new gaming experiences from the homebrew community, continuous updates to keep the Dreamcast Mini fresh, and maybe even built-in support to make creating homebrew games even easier. This could make the Dreamcast Mini a truly unique modern-day console experience. Now, I haven't even talked about the controller or the VMU, because there are so many things Sega could do with those as well. It's probably best saved for another video. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you can find out in the next video about the Sega Dreamcast Mini. And while you're here, you may as well check out some of these awesome videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.